Hi, everybody. It's Susie McMahon with Susie McMahon's Virtual Book Club, coming to you with a pop-up planned introduction where Sally Handley has joined us. The last we saw you, Sally, was May when we featured your cozy mystery novel, The Second Bloom. And now we have a wonderful treat where you're going to introduce us to a future featured author, Mr. Kent Kruger. Sally, welcome back, and go ahead and move straight in. I know we have a time crunch. Everybody out there watching, we're only going to be on for about 15 minutes tonight. So I'm going to have Sally go ahead and introduce this gentleman that's in the bottom of the screen, and go for it. Sally, welcome.
Well, it is an honor to be able to introduce to you William Kent Kruger. I was first introduced to Kent's writing when someone selected Ordinary Grace for our mystery book club here through our Sisters in Crime chapter in Greenville, South Carolina. And while Ordinary Grace has a murder in it, it's not your typical mystery, but I loved the book. And that introduced me to Kent. And I learned that he had a mystery series. And so I went to that and read the first in his Cork O'Connor mystery series and fell in love with his half Irish, half Ojibwe protagonist, Cork O'Connor. And I was then lucky to meet Kent in person when he came to Greenville to our local bookstore, Fiction Addiction.
Wonderful bookstore.
It is. It truly is. And Kent was on his This Tenderland tour when he came there. And so we then read that for the Mystery Book Club. And I have to tell you, I adored that book. And I did write a book review after I read it. And I want to read for everyone listening just the first paragraph of that book review. And I said, if you are a fan of Mark Twain and Charles Dickens, you must read William Kent Kruger's latest novel, This Tender Land. In this compelling story, four orphans set out on a river journey to escape the bleak and merciless Lincoln Indians training school in the summer of 1932. Your heart will be with them every oar stroke of the journey. And if you've read any of Kent's other books, you're going to love this one. And if you're meeting William Kent Kruger for the first time, I promise you, he's going to be on the list of your favorite authors. So, Kent, why don't you tell everybody about This Tender Land?
Sure. And what a lovely introduction, Sally. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll just say that, and I do publish under that very literary three-name thing, William Kent Kruger, but I go by Kent. So, if we ever meet in the future, feel free to call me Kent. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. I have now for more than 40 years with my wife of, last March 10th. She was my wife of 48 years. Wow. Yeah. And our children are still here. Our grandson is here, despite the fact that we do have those legendarily bitter winters. I love Minnesota. I love the people here. And I love writing about it. This Tender Land. So Sally mentioned my Cork O'Connor mystery series. There are currently 18 novels in that particular series. And that's really where I cut my teeth on mysteries. But I've had the opportunity to write a couple of stories across these years that were not a part of my Cork O'Connor series. In 2013, I published Ordinary Grace. And the success of Ordinary Grace really opened me to being able to do things besides my Cork O'Connor series. And in 2019, I published what I consider the companion novel to Ordinary Grace, a book called This Tender Land. This Tender Land is a story that I've wanted to write since I was 11 years old. When I was 11, that would have been in the fifth grade. Toward the end of that year, our teacher read to the class The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. She did it by reading half an hour after lunch every day. I love that book. There was this kid, he was just like me, and he was out there on the Mississippi River having these really great adventures. And of course, after that, I had to read Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which I loved even more. And honest to God, across my entire career as a writer, I have wanted someday to write a story that would pay homage to Mark Twain, that might be in its own way an updated version of Huckleberry Finn. And that's This Tender Land.
That sounds so, I'm so excited to open it up and to get reading. Kent, you also have been doing a lot of touring, I think, or talking about your newest book. What other, and I'll go right back to you, Sally. What else have you been working on currently? Or what are you promoting currently? Because I know This Tender Land is a little bit older in its publication.
Sure. I am completing the revisions for the next novel, number 19 in my Cork O'Connor series, a book that will be called Fox Creek. That will be published probably August of next year. And then I return to work on my next standalone novel, which will be a companion to both This Tender Land and Ordinary Grace.
Wow. Wonderful. Now, when you say that it's a companion piece, can you explain to, if some of us have not read Ordinary Grace, can it stand alone on its own, or should we hop real quick, read Ordinary Grace before we read This Tender Land?
No, I call them companion novels because they aren't connected in terms of the stories or the characters. The companion in other ways. Unlike my Cork O'Connor series, which is set in the Great North Woods of Minnesota, This Tender Land and Ordinary Grace are set in southern Minnesota, a very agrarian landscape. And they're both set in an earlier time. Ordinary Grace is the summer of 1961, and This Tender Land is the summer of 1932. And they are also companion in that they deal with many of the same themes.
Thank you. And Sally, since we've seen you, what have you been working on?
Well, I am working on the 5th book of my Holly and Ivy mystery series. I haven't got a title for it yet, but in this book, the two sisters are reunited with their estranged sister, Fern. And they return to their childhood home in Pennsylvania, where, of course, a murder occurs. What else? And the sisters, of course, are drawn into that, into helping solve the mystery. And so I've just this month gotten really started. I don't know if it's the inspiration from all those NaNoWriMo emails that I get, but I've really been writing a chapter every day. And
whoa.
Yeah, it's coming along. Well, I don't write long chapters, Kent, so I'm not writing literary work quite like yours, but for Cozy Mystery, I'm still very happy to be knocking out a chapter a day and moving the story along. So I may actually finish it in the month of November. So I'm very excited about that. Thank you for asking.
You are so welcome. I'm getting a little feedback that our sound might be breaking up for some, so I apologize, everybody. You never know with these live broadcasts, but we'll keep moving ahead. One of the things I wanted, just as a business piece, wanted everybody to know that we will be featuring This Tender Land written by Kent Kruger in the month of November, what's left of it, and into December, and we'll have a meeting where we meet one-on-one with Kent in a date to be determined. We're working out schedules later in the month of December. But we've got about 5 more minutes. Sally, do you want to ask Kent a question from author to author?
Author to author. Oh gosh, I just love your writing. I hate to be gushy because I do. I adored this Ordinary Grace, but This Tender Land really, I thought it was really over the top. So now you said you've got something else that you're thinking of. What is the basic plot for the non-Cork O'Connor book that you're writing?
The third standalone, the third companion novel.
Yeah.
I have to be frank with you. I'm really reluctant to talk about it.
Okay.
I'm still imagining the story, and I don't want to dissipate the energy by
Okay.
talking about it too much. I don't have a title for it yet. I am about 100 pages into it, and I'm still not entirely certain where it's going to lead me. But
Okay.
for me, that's particularly in the standalones. That's part of the fun is just figuring out or actually letting the story decide where it wants to go.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a question for you, Sally.
Sure.
Um, how the hell do you write a chapter a day?
Well,
And
again,
are you able to do that because you have a sense of where you're going with the story?
absolutely. I said, it's very funny. People ask that question of anytime I've heard other authors speak, they're always asked the same question. And the basic thing is that once I know where the story's going, they almost do start to write themselves. I, when I get stymied, I sit down with a cup of coffee and a legal pad and a pen, very, very low tech. And
Yeah.
I go, okay, what if I do this? What has to happen? And then what if I do that? What will this character do if I do that? But once I've done that and it's clear to me where I'm going, I have several chapters worked out and they just go. But um, when I start out, it's not a clear idea of like I know where I'm going. I always know the end. I know where I'm starting. I know the end, but everything in between is just very, very iffy. I figure that out as I go.
So when you say you know the end, do you know who done it?
Yeah, I do.
And you're never surprised by who done it.
No, and I know people say that they don't always know who done it, which I think is fascinating if that would happen. I'm trying to think if I've ever changed it. I've only written 4 books, but I don't think I've ever changed who done it once I made up my mind from the beginning. How about you? Do you know who done it? Well, again, the Cork O'Connors are like, that's like we are not worthy, when I think of those compared to my cozies. But we also read this very in a recent round of our mystery book club, Northwest Angle,
Mm-hmm.
and wow, that was I loved that one too. I do. I'm gushing again. I'm sorry. I take it, like I don't want to do that. But I hadn't read everything in between up till I do like to read series one right after another, but I read that because someone had selected it and it didn't hurt not to I think it's really good to have read the first one because you know who this character is from that first one. But after that, how he handles things is really good.
Yeah, when you're a writer of a long-running series, you're aware that readers may come to your work in the 14th or 15th or 18th
Yeah.
entry. So you have to write each story with an eye to having it be able to for the reader to enjoy that story without any real awareness of the history involved in the characters. That said, because the 18 books in my series span 15 years in the lives of the characters,
Right.
it tends to be a much richer experience if you start at the beginning
Yeah.
and move through in order. But you don't have to do that.
Well, I just wanted to thank both of you for joining me tonight. And Sally, thank you so much for introducing us to Kent. I know that he has a busy evening. For just a closing question, can I just ask each of you what books are you reading, or name one book, not multiple, that you're reading right now that you might recommend to our listeners? Sally, go ahead.
Ironically, what I'm reading is Stevie Van Zandt's Unrequited Infatuations. I'm a Jersey girl, okay? I live in South Carolina now, but I'm a Jersey girl. And I read Bruce Springsteen's book. And so I'm reading his now, and I'm just loving it, just loving it.
Nice. And Kent, what about you?
Well, I just finished a novel and I'm about to begin another book, but the novel I just finished knocked my socks off. It was called The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek, and I just found it a delightful story and informative in many, many ways.
Thank you for
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So I wish everyone in this new week of darkness that's earlier than we're used to a wonderful evening. Sally, thank you for joining us again. I look forward
My
to seeing you in March for the Low Country Literary and Leisure say
Can't
that
wait.
really fast, getaway that I'm sponsoring with the Pat Conroy Literary Center. And Kent, I look forward to meeting with you again once all the book club members have, including myself, have read This Tender Land. Thanks for joining me tonight.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you,
Thanks.
Susie.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.